Hello and welcome, everybody. I'm here today with Chapter 20 of Book 2 of the Royal Ranger series, The Red Fox Clan. With that, let's go ahead and get into it. The following day, Maddie and Cassandra were strolling around the battlements, enjoying the expansive views below the castle. Cassandra was taking a welcome break from her desk and its litter of paperwork. "Well, you managed to survive the ordeal of dining with the Iberian ambassador," Cassandra said. Maddie frowned. "He's a pompous, condescending git," she said spitefully. Her mother smiled. "Such courtly language," she said. "He seemed very taken with you." "He seemed very taken with himself," Maddie replied. "But he certainly kept himself busy passing oily compliments on my unsurpassed beauty." When he had finally set the lute aside, after not one, but half a dozen numbers, Don and Salvo had spent the rest of the evening plying Maddie with effusive, overstated compliments, all of them based on his appreciation of her physical charms. "Well, he's a diplomat, and an Iberian. There's an old saying, when you've learned to fake sincerity, you're ready to become an Iberian diplomat." Maddie pushed out her bottom lip in a mew of mocking disappointment. "You mean he wasn't being sincere?" Cassandra grinned. "I'm afraid not. In case you were wondering, your eyes don't really shine to match the full moon low over the horizon," she said, quoting one of Don and Salva's more exotic compliments. "I'm devastated to hear it," Maddie said, in a tone that indicated she was anything but. "I felt sorry for Damone. He was sort of caught in the middle there, wasn't he?" "Yes, he apologized later for not sticking up for you. But there wasn't a lot he could say. You seem to be getting on well with him," Cassandra added, a questioning note in her voice. Maddie nodded. "Yes, I like him. He's good company." "You know he's a distant relative, don't you?" her mother said. "Damone?" Maddie looked up in surprise. Cassandra nodded. "Pretty distant. I think he's your cousin 6 or 7 times removed on your grandmother's side," she said. "It gets a little hard to keep track of after 4 or 5 removes." "So we're related. No wonder he's such a nice person," Maddie said. "It's not a close enough relationship to form any barrier if you were interested in him," Cassandra said, studying her daughter's reaction. Maddie snorted derisively. "Oh, please," she said. "I like him. He's good company. But I'm not interested in him romantically." Cassandra shrugged. "Just saying, if you were," she said. It was a new experience for her to think about her daughter forming attachments with personable young men. She wasn't totally sure how she felt about the sensation. But Maddie waved the idea aside and changed the subject. "So what's been keeping you busy?" Cassandra sighed and stretched. "I'd forgotten the amount of paperwork involved in accepting a new ambassador," she said. "King Carlos of Iberian sent a 20-page missive for me to answer in detail, in unsuitably florid court language. I should have kept Lord Anthony on for a few more days to draft the reply for me. It's taking me ages." "Why not call him back?" Maddie asked, although she suspected her mother would never do that. Cassandra shrugged. His daughter arrived with her new baby daughter. He's settled happily at home with his family, and with the visitors, he has a lot of work to do stockpiling food and firewood for the colder months. "What about you? What have you been up to?" she asked. Maddie waved a hand vaguely in the air. "Oh, just poking around the castle. I've been out to Warwick and Lou's farm a couple of times to see Bumper. Patrolled the area to see if anything's happening. Gillen asked me to do that," she added, in case her mother might think she was interfering where she wasn't wanted. Cassandra nodded. She knew about the arrangement with Warwick and Lou, knew they were part of Gillen's intelligence network, and she was aware that Gillen had asked her daughter to keep an eye on the fief in his absence. "Gillen said something about the old abbey above the farm," Cassandra said. "Yes. Apparently they had seen lights up there, or thought they had. I checked it out, but there's been nobody there for some time. If anything, it was probably travelers passing through and using the building for shelter. She paused, then changed the subject abruptly. Mum, tell me about the South Tower. Castle Erlewin had 4 towers, one at each of the 4 corners of the crenellated outer wall. In the center was a 5th, the keep. The main administration offices, formal dining halls, audience rooms, throne room, and apartments were there, along with floors of accommodation for visiting guests and senior castle staff. Cassandra's and Horace's workspaces were there as well, in addition to the royal apartments. The keep was lower than the 4 towers, but it was joined to them at the 4th floor level by 4 arched stone walkways, which gave the entire structure the appearance of being ready to spring into the air. You grew up here, don't you know? Cassandra replied. Maddie shook her head. I never spent much time there when I was a kid, she said. But I was in there today, and it seems kind of empty. There are no rooms or apartments. Well, hardly any, in the lower floors. It just seems sort of superfluous. Maybe that's why it never interested me when I was growing up. I suppose not, Cassandra replied. Actually, it's what we call our retreat of last resort. That phrase caught Maddie's attention. Cassandra thought, seeing her daughter sit up straighter. It had implications of adventure and action, and, as such, it would inevitably fire her daughter's interest in martial affairs. That sounds fascinating, Maddie said. Cassandra elaborated. In the event that Castle Erlewin's outer walls were breached, she said, we would fall back to the keep as our penultimate line of defense. But if that fell in its turn, the defenders could access the South Tower by way of the Archstone Bridge. The South Tower is much more defensible and is set up to survive a long siege. How so? Maddie asked. The top levels are served by a single spiral staircase, which could be easily defended by a few men. It's the only access. Not quite, Maddie thought, but she said nothing. Cassandra continued. The upper 2 floors are kept stocked with food and weapons, and within the spire there's a large cistern that collects rainwater. That would be even more important than the food supplies in the long run. Even a small force could hold out there for months. Maddie nodded thoughtfully. Cassandra mistook her expression for concern and added reassuringly, Not that it's ever likely to come to that, of course. The outer wall has never been breached. Of course, Maddie said. That explains why it's the only tower served by a secret staircase, she thought. If all else failed, the occupants could escape down to the cellar level and out through the tunnel under the moat. Cassandra rose from the table. Well, I'm afraid I still have work to do, she said. Maddie looked up at her. Don't stay up too late. Cassandra smiled. I'm supposed to say that to you, she said. She started toward the door that led to her office, then, as a thought struck her, turned back. Oh, by the way, don't disappear tomorrow. I have people arriving that I want you to meet. Maddie grinned at her. Not more smooth-talking Iberians. Cassandra gave a short laugh. Not these people. They're quite rough and ready. Rough and ready? Maddie replied. They sound like my sort of people. They are. I'm pretty sure you'll like them. They're Scandians. All right, that is going to bring us to the conclusion of Chapter 20. Thank you, everyone, for joining me, and I will see you next time in Chapter 21. God bless, and have a good one.